And now elk are kind of extirpated from the state. In other words, they're extinct in Iowa. But once in a while you hear about an escapee from a game farm or an elk wandering in from another state. And usually when that happens, the DNR goes out and shoots and kills it because they're really worried about the chronic wasting disease. It's sort of like the mad cow disease in animals of the deer family. And I don't know, I always thought it'd be kind of nice that if elk could reestablish in Iowa, but then when you see the damage a deer does to a car, I'm thinking you probably have a lot of fatalities, so maybe the insurance company has a hand in that. Kind of doesn't want to see that happen. But the deer, if you ever look at an aerial photograph of Greene County from the 1920s, and they do have them, it shows everything, every piece of land was used. Either it was plowed into cropland, or if it was a timber ground, they grazed it right down to the quick. So if you see pictures of the timber in Greene County, there was no understory. It's all wide open. And of course there's unregulated hunting, so people could hunt in spring, summer, fall, winter. And when you needed meat on the table, you'd go out and shoot a deer. And probably by the 1920s, early 1930s, we had no deer left in Iowa, period. So they were wiped out of the state. And then eventually, I don't know, maybe in the 1940s, some deer escaped from a southern Iowa game farm and repopulated the whole state. Forgive me here. We had mountain lion here, and then they were wiped out of the state. But then once in a while, you hear about someone seeing a mountain lion or a car hitting one, and the DNR says that what that is these young male mountain lions from Wyoming or the Dakotas are kicked out of their territory from another state by a more dominant male, and they're pushed into Iowa. They're kind of looking to establish a territory. So all we have in Iowa are males. And then the funny thing is, then you hear somebody who says, I was walking in my timber and I saw a female with cubs, and they are really adamant. So I don't know, but you know, I notice people do misidentify animals all the time. So I haven't really heard of documented evidence that there's females with cubs or very young mountain lions, but we had lynx here because Truman Davis, the first settler, when he first arrived, he needed money to get his family to move back to Iowa with him, and he set out a trap line, and he caught lynx, several lynx, and he caught wildcats, which are bobcats. And bobcats sort of, they were still here, but they really got kind of scarce. And now they're kind of making a great comeback. And I've seen people with trail cam footage that's a bobcat, because they put their trail cams out to get pictures of a big buck or something, so they know when they hunt a certain area that's where to go, because there's a big buck habitating that. And they end up catching pictures of bobcats. And then plus I've seen bobcats in and around Seven Hills. And most of your sightings are a quick glimpse that you wonder what you just saw. And the last time I saw one, we were leaving Seven Hills, and they had that one place where the timber kind of squeezes in, and it's on both sides of the road. And Bess was kind of looking somewhere else, and he shot across the road. And it looked like he was it looked like something wearing pajamas. And I told my wife, I said that it looked like a spotted hyena. So I said, no, it's a bobcat. But several years ago, I had a summer kid working with me, and I saw 3 does standing by the edge of the timber, and I pointed them out to him, and all of a sudden he was big, he was really skinny and tall, and that thing must have been that tall, and his tail was like that, twice as long as I thought it should be, and I got a really good look because it didn't run full bore, it just trotted right in front of us. heading across the road into the other timber, and those 3 does are right on his tail, their nose to his tail, escorting him away from their fawns. Because they predate on fawns pretty heavily. And then last year, my wife and I were going into Seven Hills, and there was a big cloud of dust and something brown rolling around the ground. And I went, what is that? Is that a woodchuck or what is that? And all of a sudden this bobcat's head shot up, and at the same time his head shot up, a squirrel got loose from his grasp and ran up a tree, and then it ran behind the tree and by the garbage can, and she got a picture of it. I'm too slow. But I thought, dang, I hate to interrupt his meal, but I'd rather see more bobcats than squirrels, because those darn squirrels in that park are just chewing all my buildings up. So, but anyway, you do see them, and you hear a lot of other people are seeing them now. So, but I've always heard that you can live in bobcat country your whole life and never see one. So they're that secretive. We had wolves in Iowa, and we had a lot of wolves in Iowa and Greene County, and they're called a gray wolf, a timber wolf, a prairie wolf. It's still the same animal. And they're pretty much wiped out from the state. But the DNR says that at any one time, and that's nowadays, that we have 5 wolves in Iowa across the state. And last winter, somebody spotted a wolf in Guthrie County. And it somehow made its way to Carroll County, and some coyote hunter with a heat imaging scope shot and killed him. And he didn't know what he shot. He thought he shot a coyote. Well, it just came out last month that it came out that it was like 1% dog. Now, I don't know how they figured that out, but to me, I think they're letting the guy off the hook, because if the wolf is a federally protected animal, then there's probably a good chance that that guy would have been prosecuted by the federal government and heavily fined for shooting that wolf. But what the wolves would do is they would kill coyotes. So we didn't have a lot of coyotes here. We had some, it's not a lot, but they wanted to eliminate the competition. So now that we have no wolves, the coyotes population is just exploding. You see coyotes in broad daylight. So now what the coyotes are doing, they're killing all the red fox because they want to eliminate that competition. And so that's why you don't see red fox having dead sites out on a fence row, because the coyotes will dig up the den and kill their pups. So now they're coming into Jefferson, or they're coming over by someone's barn and making a den, or some of these smaller towns have red fox. And it wasn't that many years ago when the hospital had long-term, they had bird feeders set up to the west of the hospital, and the residents there could watch gray fox, which is more of a timber fox, and they can climb trees. But they would see them over by the bird feeders, whether they're eating the bird seed or eating birds, I'm not sure. But I would go down by Jackson Hill, the bridge by the river, and I'd see gray fox down there too.
I was just going to say, there's an article in the Des Moines Register today about how the DNR is interested in tracking gray fox. So if you trap a gray fox, they'll give you $400.
Well, and see, Greene County was, for a long time, when I talked to fur buyers, people would turn in gray fox, and most of them come from Greene County. So I don't know how we end up with so many of them, but I mean, you don't see them. I haven't seen one in years, but.
Yeah.
Now, the DNR has reestablished otters in Iowa, and I do see them in Greene County, much to the dismay of fishermen, because they don't like otters. We have badgers here. Once in a while see badgers, and like my wife says, I'll go by and I'll see a badger sticking his head out of a hole, and a couple of days later there he is, or there she is again, and usually the males wander off. They don't stay in the same hole, but if you see a head in that hole for a couple of days, it's probably a female with a pup or a kit or whatever. We have mink here, and we have short-tailed weasels, which a short-tailed weasel, in the wintertime they turn white, and they're called an ermine. We used to have long-tailed weasels here, but I haven't heard or seen one for forever. And then years ago, Peyton had a chicken hatchery, and something was getting into the chicken wire and killing like over 100 caged birds. And the guy that was taking care of the hatchery was frantic, and he put out some traps and finally caught it. And it was a fully grown adult least weasel, and it was probably smaller than my pinky. And it was killing all those chickens. We have striped skunks, and for a while there, I don't know why I quit seeing them, but all of a sudden now, the last couple of years, I'm starting to see them dead on the road or walking through a farm field. And I remember, and probably a lot of people here, you'll remember a lot of these animals too, but I remember spotted skunk in Greene County. And now they're in trouble statewide. And the thing is, like a striped skunk, when they want to spray you, they put their tail, aim their tail at you, and they might be looking over their shoulder at you, and they'll let you have it. But a spotted skunk will face you and do a handstand, and of course they're tree climbers too, and put their tail over their head and let you have it. And it's funny, you can tell the difference because a striped skunk spray smells different than a spotted skunk spray. And I haven't smelled a spotted skunk in years because there are very few of them left. But even a mink will spray. And if you catch one in a trap and he's agitated, you go walking up on it. But they don't spray you, they just spray the air. And even that smells different. And we have beavers here, and for the last couple of years there are some guys north of Hyde Park all the way down to south of Squirrel Hollow were trapping beavers. And down to Squirrel Hollow you'd look down at the river when there wasn't so much underbrush and stuff, and you see where the beavers have chewed around these giant cottonwood trees, and you think, what kind of a beaver could do that? And then you saw what these guys were catching. They're like 50 and 60 pound beavers. They're huge. But they're a very wonderful animal. They're just so good for the environment. And as an example, this summer there was a manure spill, like a hog manure from a hog confinement, that somehow got into the tile and it leaked into this little drainage creek. And the oxygen levels in that creek went down to 0. And it wiped out that whole section of creek, but what stopped that in time for the cleanup crew to show up was 2 beaver dams held that manure back. So it could have wiped out that whole creek, and it got into the river, and the river being as low as it is, probably would not have diluted that stuff very much, and would probably really poison out a good part of the river too. So, but I suppose if you farm, and beavers are plugging up your drainage tiles, or they wipe out like $5,000 worth of corn, you're probably not going to agree with me that this is such a wonderful animal. But
cut down so many trees.
What's that?
They cut down all these trees along the creek too.
Yeah, and I hate that, but I guess that's their food source. But you know, we are still cutting trees down. I mean, you see some of the old farmsteads, and they're getting bulldozed out for more cropland, and I even kind of hate to see when someone builds a house in the timber and they'll wipe out like 5 or 10 acres for a house. I mean, a lot of people feel like, you know, what a beautiful place to put a house. Sometimes it's like, what a beautiful place to not put a house. Kind of leave things alone. But you know, the only thing there I'd say, if somehow putting a house there saves that plot of timber, that's probably a good thing, but for the most part, I don't know, as hilly as things are, that timber would ever be in trouble. But no, you hate to see them. I mean, but when we had a lot of timber, it really didn't matter. And some of these soft trees that we have along the river are pretty fast growing. So Do you remember too, when we had a lot more ground squirrels, the 13-line ground squirrels? Now these are study skins. They're made this way on purpose. They're not mounted like you see in a museum display because it take up too much room and they break easy. So a lot of times your museums have study skins like this in their back rooms, so you can still see the size and the color. But the 13-line ground squirrel, like you'd be driving to Carroll and you'd see one standing up about 6 or 7 inches tall. And then you go a little ways, there's another one, and another one, and another one. And then all at once you see this thing that's like a ground squirrel that's brown, and he's like 14 or more inches tall by the side of the road. And then you see them every so many half miles or something. And what those were, they were Franklin ground squirrels, and we don't have them anymore in Greene County. I don't know about western Iowa, but I know they still have them in South Dakota. So, now I moved here in '71